Morning, everyone. Call this meeting to order for the Corporation of Township of Whistler, July 9th, 2025. We'll just take a moment to say some words. As you can see, there's some sheets on the seats beside you. If you have a problem hearing any of the members of council or speaking, there's a protocol for just raising your hand. Is it a fist? Fist, and staff will help identify that. Want to discourage, engagement from the gallery, interrupting the council meeting. So that protocol's there. So just if you need a moment, make yourself familiar with it. All right. Start with roll call. Councillor Spillis.
Present.
Yeah. Councillor Bailey. Councillor Hurst.
Present.
Councillor Goyda.
Present.
So we'll begin our moment of reflection. This is our moment of reflection. Confirmation of the agenda.
That the council approves the July 9th, 2025 agenda addendum as circulated, and that council approves the additions to the agenda as follows. Consent item 6.1.7, questions received from council seeking additional information, and the corresponding responses provided by staff regarding the July 9th to 2025 council agenda.
Begin word, please, Councillor Hurst. Councillor Spillis. Any questions or comments on that? Favor? That's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest today?
Yes, it's to do with item 7.1.1 and item 10.1, 7.11 delegation by David Patey and Sandra Patey regarding 10.1 presentation by NPG Planning Solutions regarding Whistler by Design pages 5 and 6, and 10.1 presentation by NPG Planning Solutions regarding Whistler by Design pages 5 and 6. I live on Side Road 20 and have previously declared that I have a pecuniary interest in a proposed rezoning of a property on Side Road 20 North. The study area for the Whistler by Design phase 5 and 6 includes all properties on the east side of Side Road 20 from Mountain Road 34 to Forest Dell Road as one of the options for redevelopment. This requires me to declare a pecuniary interest as any development may have an impact on the value of my property. I cannot accordingly participate in discussions and delay and decisions regarding the study.
Thank you, Councillor Spillis. There's close. All right. Sure. And I'll invite the first delegation down for the table, please. Good morning.
Good morning.
Mayor, councillors, we'd like to thank everybody for giving us this opportunity to express our concerns. Sandra is representing the Donkey Sanctuary, and I am as well, and we're also representing the Help Protect Bush Lynch group. The Donkey Sanctuary is, as you know, located near the site we're concerned about. Donkey Sanctuary has 8,000 a donor base. It has over 20 full-time employees, or sorry, for full-time and part-time. And it used to receive up to 30,000 visitors in the summer. We're now expecting more like 12,000. The Help Protect Bush Lynch group is made up of 120 residents in the immediate area, Side Road 20, Concession 4, and Forestville. And we'd like to give you our written representation so you can follow along. And then I'd like to, after our presentation, discuss the challenges we have as a small park and how this is affecting us.
Sir.
I have the floor. Council.
Yes, of my statement, I only have 1, 2, 3, 4 copies.
Oops, you better give me back what I'm.
Just a question for you. Are you able to provide those electronically afterwards, or have you?
Yes. Yes.
So, well, see if we, how many we've got. So Sandra was gonna start with the donkey sanctuary.
Good morning.
Morning.
I am here today on behalf of the Donkey Sanctuary of Canada, the animal rescue and welfare education charity located on Concession 4 in Puslinch that attracts thousands of visitors to the township each year. The DSC has been operating in Puslinch for over 30 years, and 15 years ago, its board of directors decided to make a long-term commitment to Puslinch Township by purchasing the 100-acre farm on which the DSC had been operating. Further, 5 years later, the DSC was able to purchase the 100-acre farm on its western boundary to ensure the availability of hay and straw to meet the animals' needs. The decision to purchase these farms was significantly influenced by the assurances to be found in the Wellington County Puslinch Township Plan. In it, councils are committed to maintain the small and rural character of the county, protect the agricultural land base for farming, ensure that farmers following normal farming practices are not hindered by conflicting development, and support the creation of partnerships among landowners, community groups, and government which promote or undertake land stewardship activities. Given the DSC's long-term commitment to all of these items listed in the plan, we were pleased to learn last month that the consultants who carried out the Puslinch by Design study have recommended specifically and only that options A and D be the designated areas for development and growth. This recommendation was formulated only after extensive research and public consultations, as you know. Now we are being told that Puslinch Council has made an addendum to the recommendations. This has been added as a result of a last-minute action initiated by Mayor James Seeley, and it adds an overlay of options B, C, G, and H to the recommendations. The DSC vigorously opposes this action by council. The action clouds the consultant's recommendations and disregards entirely the opposition to the inclusion of option B and C, in particular, by both the DSC and a local group of over 100 concerned residents. Keeping in mind the 4 commitments taken from the master plan, which I just listed, the surprise addendum in every way goes against the Wellington County and Puslinch Township planning guidelines. Furthermore, the tactics used are counter to our democratic expectations. On behalf of the Donkey Sanctuary of Canada, we urge that the decision to include the overlay of options B, C, G, and H to the Puslinch by Design recommendations be rescinded. Thank you.
So on behalf of the Help Protect Puslinch group, we are pleased with the conclusions drawn by and from the Puslinch by Design study, and believe the registered professional planners of NPG Solutions did an excellent job carefully weighing all the evidence that determine the most appropriate area for new rural employment lands. Option D is an excellent choice. It has great exposure to Highway 401, spans over 92 hectares, has flat topography, is truck ready, adjacent to aggregate uses, and is more distant from sensitive farm and land uses. This area alone represents 3 times the minimum 30 hectares established in the county official plan to support growth to 2051 and beyond. Our main concern, and what we urge council to reconsider, is the potential recommendation to add future rural employment area overlay. Options B, C, G, and H. As you know, this project used extensive evaluation criteria to identify lands that meet policy considerations and support orderly employment growth. while respecting the rural character and setting that define Bush Lynch and are deeply valued by the community. According to the study, option A and option D emerged as the strongest candidates for future employment growth, providing nearly 120 hectares of developable land. By choosing option D and additionally adding an overlay on 4 more areas, options B, C, G, and H, council would effectively be designating 77% or 279 hectares of lands identified within the study. This approach is excessive, misleading, and not aligned with the conclusions of the professional planners. And it is the community entrusted and paid to guide for this process. Designating additional lands as future rural employment areas sends a strong signal to developers when there is no immediate need. This can result in the following: increased land speculation. Developers and investors may start buying up farmland and rural properties in anticipation of future approvals, a trend we have already witnessed in Bush Lynch. This drives up land prices, making it harder for local farmers to purchase or retain agricultural land. Pressure on current landowners. Speculative interests can pressure landowners to sell rather than continue farming or maintaining rural uses, leading to a decline in active agriculture and stewardship. Fragmentation of rural lands. Speculatively held lands are often left idle or poorly maintained while waiting for development, disrupting continuous agricultural operations and weakening the farming community. Erosion of rural character and sense of community. Bush Lynch's identity is rooted in its agricultural landscape, open spaces, strong farming traditions. Future employment overlays change this long-term vision, prioritizing industrial development over rural preservation. Mismatch with actual needs. Without demonstrated needs, additional overlays primarily serve those seeking to profit from the land value increases, not the broader interests of the community. By avoiding unnecessary overlays, council can protect Bush Lynch's rural identity, support active agriculture, and discourage speculative land buying that does not align with the community's vision of long-term interest. We respect and urge council to remove this recommendation from the report and remain consistent with the conclusions of Bush Lynch by design, study, and professional planners' evidence-based analysis. Thank you for your consideration. The second thing I'd like to do is really discuss the challenges of small farms in Bush Lynch now. So the donkey sanctuary is 200 acres. We farm 100. We have over 100 equines to feed. We used to do the hay ourselves, can't do it anymore. The cost of equipment is so excessive, we'd have to have at least 1,000 acres to be able to farm. We use large square bales. I mean, the equipment we had to do our 100 acres of hay cost over $2 million. So small farms can't do it. The way we're trying to do it is to rent more land. But when things like this happen, you can just take, I think it's almost 400 acres we're talking about on concession or side road 20. And 100 acres of that, well, 70 has been purchased and 100 is under, this has an agreement of purchase and sale not closed. We would, this donkey sanctuary, if we had that land, it would make a huge difference. We can't even afford to make an offer because the prices, when we started, the donkey sanctuary bought the arable land for 10,000 acres. The next 100 acres we bought was 12. Now we're way over 30, and that's not bringing in the speculative part. The 100 acres at the corner of concession 4 and 20 is, I don't know, the price is so high, the owners who didn't want to sell said we just couldn't turn it down. However, in my opinion, what's happened is that deal is not closed. Another neighbor has put in an offer to try and buy that farm to protect it as farmland. If that happened, we'd be able to probably rent it. That would give us a longer, better solution because we need more land in order to keep our 100 acres isn't enough to bring all this equipment to us. And if I had 200 acres, that would give the donkey sanctuary the long-term farming plan it needs. So the other neighbor that put in the offer is probably in, all this is got NDAs on it, so I don't know what the offer is. My speculation is the first offer, which is very high, is based on new zoning. And it's probably conditional on that. The other offer is basically probably in the 20 to 30,000 an acre range, which is what current farm prices are if there's not speculation involved. So we're really concerned if that is it almost 400 acres we're talking about. If that comes off the market, it's no longer farmland, the pressure on the local small farms like ours is immense. And we don't know long-term. I mean, are we sustainable? I guess the donkey sanctuary could find another way of going about it, but we have a contract right now with a Mennonite group that bring all this equipment in. And 100 acres, we lost 20 acres we were renting. Puts us at the bare minimum. And as costs go up, whether I can maintain that contract is a real challenge. If I had 200 acres to provide them with, we have sustainability. So when something like this happens and there's 400 acres that's all really good farmland as far as we're concerned, could come off the market and not be available, it's scary. And it could force a lot of farmers to look elsewhere. And so we really welcome Bush Lynch by Design and its conclusions. And we totally support it, but this add-on scares us and really puts a donkey sanctuary in a really awkward position. We thought we were there forever. I've talked to all our neighbors saying, we'd like to have right of first refusal. Now, the good thing is, the neighbors love it so much, nobody wants to sell. That have farms. Everybody that's around us loves that area. You don't see really much turnover. There's not many farms for sale. People love Pushlands, and so we want to protect it. And the donkey sanctuary, I think, is a big part of this, of Push Lynch, and we love it and don't want to move and want everything to do everything we can to protect the part of it. Thank you.
Anything? No. All right, well, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for taking time out of your day today to come and join us. Is there any questions from council?
More comment, thank you for coming. I think your comments were very succinct, which I appreciate, to the point, direct, and yeah, I think the long-term farming piece is a lot to unpack. I can share just my own perspective. Yeah, it's a tricky how you navigate short-term, long-term. I think with the Push Lynch by Design is very much a zoning issue that I guess starts to impact the donkey sanctuary, but yeah, I think I just wanted to share, like, your comments were quite direct and succinct, and I appreciate that, and to share the personal impacts, I think is quite important to hear. Thank you.
Very well said. I would echo this comment. Thank you.
Yeah, we understand, we understand there's challenges for farmers. I know time's flying by, but 3-4 years ago, the last milking dairy operation, Sutton Farm down below on Highway 6 South. That was the last one in Push Lynch. My wife's uncles, my uncles, they raised their family, 4 boys on a single farm. I don't know if that's possible anymore, and you see these conglomerates that are, like you're mentioning, have that minimum of 1,000 acres to make it viable. And, you know, I have people that are close friends, they work full-time jobs and have hundreds of acres and still not enough. So it is a very challenging time for farmers, we recognize that, and it's the equipment costs, fuel costs. One of my things, at the county, we do, we're trying to do a program where we, have more accessible food, cheaper food. You know, we're putting things in place. My problem is the large conglomerate distribution of food, you know, grocery stores. If we cut costs, it doesn't end up in the farmer's pocket, it ends up in somebody else's pocket. It's hard to get that, you know, into the farmer's pocket, but, you know, at the county level, we're trying things. But it's very challenging, and so we do recognize that. And last thing, a little off topic. You mentioned that your attendance is down, or you projected attendance is down from 30K to 12. Do you have any insight as to what was?
Well, it was really probably COVID and that, a lot of volunteers after the 2 years didn't come back, and then there was a huge amount of stress on us trying to deal with that many, so we are only open Sundays now from May 1st till the end of October, and 3 Sundays in December, and we're not open Wednesdays like we used to be in July and August. Then tour groups are up, and so there's a lot of it. The sanctuary is kind of unique in that we have school groups coming to the farming community. We really want to teach them about donkeys, and donkeys really are quite smart. They aren't treated properly in the press at times, and it's wonderful that they can come. Yesterday, we had a group of seniors. We weren't expecting that many, but huge number. A busload from Toronto. People drove from Toronto. I mean, Push Lynch, it has an appeal, and so the success of the sanctuary is all tied into that, right? And that's what we're here about, is how do we preserve that? If our visitors from Toronto drive up 20 and it's an industrial park, we don't know if what'll happen. We're scared stiff. The way it is right now, and especially since our road got closed, it's a wonderful, rural, quiet community. What a difference. We couldn't walk on the roads before. I've been to council twice, right, about speed limits. Well, now you don't hear us complaining. Ross,
I do notice.
you're right, it's probably just the same, right? We can walk on the road again. I cycle. Couldn't cycle early in the morning at 9 o'clock or at 5 o'clock. It was just awful. No, it's wonderful. That's what we're here about, right? How do we preserve this? It's amazing community. We love it. We've been here since 1990, and our neighbors are the same. Talking a bunch of behind me. How do we preserve it? We thought Push Lynch by Design got it right.
Your recommendation?
The council receives the delegation by David Patty and Sandra Patty regarding item 10.1, presentation by MPG planning students regarding the Push Lynch by Design phase 5 and 6 permission.
Please, Mr. Goya. Councilor Hurst, that's it. Most is out. All right, all in favor? Gary, we're gonna be doing the report next, so. Thank you. Right? Is Mary Lou there? Oh, sorry, it's very small, because the screen big. Morning, Mary Lou.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Again, loud and clear.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And good morning, everyone. And thank you for the opportunity to share an overview of the study results and the information that we're presenting today to council and this evening at the community event. I want to start by saying that we're not making any decisions today. We are committed to hearing from members of council and members of the community. Both Denise Horn and I were listening into the presentation from the owners of the Donkey Sanctuary, and we look forward to the feedback from council and from members of the community this evening. Once we've received that feedback, it'll give us the opportunity to reflect on what we hear and bring forward recommendations to this council on July 23rd, which is 2 weeks today. We can go to the next slide, please. So just as a reminder, this project was looking at a location for a minimum of 30 hectares of rural employment land in the township. Through the project, we considered 8 sites, which are shown here, and conducted significant research and evaluation on them, concluding with a preferred land recommendation, which is shown here as option D. We're now at the point where we are taking the information related to option D and preparing more detailed recommendations as well as related recommendations to the future rural employment land overlay, which I will be touching on in this presentation. We can go to the next slide, please. So the Phase 5 report is available and has been available for members of the community and council to read. It outlines how we got to the recommendation for option D, as well as further builds on that and provides details to address how it would be implemented through a County of Wellington official plan amendment and some related documents to support the implementation. And those are urban design guidelines and development implementation through future applications under the Planning Act, for example, rezoning applications or plans of subdivision to create individual lots for development. We've built on the earlier work that was provided by the breadth of the consulting team to ensure that we are reflecting what we learned in the earlier phases in the Phase 5 recommendations. This means that the recommended land option for option D consists of 2 components. First is the Prestige Rural Employment Area along the Highway 401 frontage. This is consistent with the recommendations from Parcel Economics in their market sounding research about capitalizing on that 401 frontage. And there are also in the urban design guidelines specific recommendations for this area to ensure it is a high quality design. The rural employment areas are those along concession 7 and the interior lands behind the Prestige Rural Employment Area. We have also identified, based on feedback, a future rural employment area overlay. I'm going to spend a bit of time on that, so I'm not going to provide too much detail at the moment, but I do want to take the opportunity a bit later on in the presentation to walk you through the thinking on that. So we can go to the next slide. There is also a map in the presentation as well that will make these designations a bit clearer. As I mentioned, the 401 frontage is a key priority for us in terms of the design and the thinking and the approach for how the buildings and future development looks from the 401. This is a very, very important entry point into the township and can create a really, really well-defined employment presence. And we do want to see that with you along that 401 corridor when the lands are developed. There will be no road access from the 401, obviously, but it does provide a visual cue and a visual demarcation of the quality of employment development in the township. The uses would be as listed here, and it is for that area on the 401 frontage. In behind is the rural employment areas land designation, which is consistent with rural employment and what we see in other areas of the township, but with a higher quality approach to urban design as well. In addition, this area we want to make sure includes addressing the adjoining residential cluster on concession 7. The official plan amendment does require a 70-meter setback from the boundary of those residential properties. That 70 meters must be natural self-sustaining vegetation, and it can only be reduced by a future official plan amendment. So that 70 meters, it's an important component of rural character as well as land use compatibility with that rural cluster. We'll go to the next slide, please. So this is the map, and the yellow area is option D, and it it is the lands to be designated rural employment area. The crosshatch in the yellow area is the Prestige Rural along the Highway 401 frontage, and the balance of the yellow is the rural employment land. You'll also see on here, there are 2 areas that have been identified as a future rural employment overlay. That's what was shown as options B and C in the long list of options that is west of Highway 6, and options G and H, which are east of Highway 6. We'll go to the next slide. So I want to spend some time talking about the future rural employment overlay. And it's important to understand what an overlay is and is not. An overlay confers no development for employment purposes. It identifies a potential for a future county official plan amendment, but subject to a number of requirements that I'll touch on in a moment. The underlying designation, which is agriculture, secondary agriculture to be specific, is only what is permitted, and that does not change through the proposed official plan amendment. As I mentioned when I shared the map, it includes options B, C, G, and H. And in order to move forward for any employment development, a future county official plan amendment would be required. There's a lot of good reason to put this overlay in the official plan. It is fundamentally, though, Council's recommendation to the County of Wellington that will be important. The reason for the overlay is this. The Planning Act in Ontario governs how applications must be processed. Any landowner has a right to make an application at any point in time. It doesn't mean they'll succeed, but they have the right. There are certain policy requirements, and for a situation like this, absent this overlay, it would be the requirements of the provincial planning statement. And those requirements would be the establishment of need, so there must be a need for additional rural employment land, and that would apply whether there is an overlay or not. Servicing requirements must be met, and issues related to agricultural impact and minimum distance separation must be achieved. Without an overlay, those are the requirements. With an overlay, township and county councils are saying there are additional public policy matters that are really important to us, and we need those respected in any application to amend the County of Wellington official plan. And this is more specific to options B and C. And in the proposed official plan amendment, we have identified that for options B and C, a conceptual layout plan is required. This will show how the land uses would be laid out, as well as an internal road network and where those connections would be by road. In addition, we have identified that no employment traffic can be generated, directed, and using Side Road 20. We've just heard from important information about the importance of farming west of this area and protecting that farming, and what the closure of the concession road at Highway 6 has meant for the community. We heard that, and we understand that. And so making sure that any employment traffic for options B and C is not directed to Side Road 20 becomes critically important. In addition, the policies also state that there will be no driveway access from any employment lands to Side Road 20. This provides the local requirements, the local perspective, and the local values, in addition to the requirements of the province of Ontario. Remember, the province can change the requirements. They did last year with the new provincial planning statement and changed substantially the requirements for something like this. So having the local perspective in with the requirements for the future employment overlay, rural employment overlay, gives you the ability to put your perspective into what's required. In essence, it creates a higher bar than what is currently in the provincial planning statement. And that would be the reason to move forward with it. Ultimately, it is council's decision, but everyone should understand, with or without an overlay, landowners can come forward with an application and it will be assessed by the County of Wellington in accordance with the policies of the county plan and the provincial planning statement. Having local perspective creates that higher bar that I spoke of. We'll go to the next slide, please. Again, just reminding everyone, this is the map. The future rural employment area overlay is shown in gray, the light gray, and the rural employment area is shown in dark gray. We'll go to the next slide, please. We have included within the report, the Phase 5 report, the implementation tools. It includes the draft, and it is a draft of the county official plan amendment to implement what I've just provided to you in the overview description. It also deletes county policies that are no longer necessary. We welcome your feedback on it. There are proposed design guidelines as well, specific to Highway 401 and the rural employment area. These would apply to option D. In addition, in the future employment overlay, these guidelines would also apply for any future county official plan amendment application. And finally, the development application guidance. It includes what's required in terms of study and how applications will be processed and assessed, and it's applicable to all development applications, whether it is a county official plan amendment, right down to a minor variance application. We'll go to the next slide, please. I want to acknowledge the importance of aquifers and hydrogeology and have worked with your staff and your hydrogeologists to ensure there's policies within the official plan amendment for mitigation of potential negative impacts on aquifers. In addition, we have focused extensively on rural character. It is an important value for the community. The 70-meter setback that I spoke about earlier is one of those elements of it in requiring the natural self-sustaining vegetation. In addition, there's land use compatibility studies required within 300 meters of any sensitive land use, which would be housing, a school, a daycare center, things like that. And that would be within the official plan amendment. We'll go to the next slide, please. The reports that are available and we are here to listen to feedback on are the preferred land option report, which incorporates the council and community input. The Phase 6 report includes the draft OPA and the studies that we've identified. Once we hear the feedback, we'll be taking that all in, revising as appropriate, and coming forward to council on July 23rd. So as I mentioned earlier, there are no decisions being made today. We are here to listen to feedback. And finally, the last future action, the County of Wellington will undertake the official plan amendment process, and that will start subsequent to the conclusion and council's decision on July 23rd. With that, my presentation is concluded, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Maybe ask you to, if you could stop sharing your screens. There we go. Members may ask you to put it back up, but we'll deal with that. All right, Councilor Hurst.
Yeah, thanks, Mary Lou. That really informative. I appreciate the walkthrough. I just have 3 quick questions. Just the first one, I'd very much encourage the overlay slide that you walk through as part of the public consultation to spend a good amount of time on that during the public meetings. I think when I'm scribbling down notes like that, that's something it's a very new concept to wrap our head around. Because I think my understanding, we went through the process and landed on the prestige and this, and then added the overlay. I think I was just trying to wrap my head around what that looks like. I'm curious, and just in your other work for other municipalities across the province, how have they approached this overlay concept, and how has it worked to the benefit of some planning activities or any detriments to doing that? I'm just, you have a lot larger lens than we would here. I'm curious if you can just speak to that.
Certainly. Thank you for the question, Councillor Hurst. So it is a tool that is not extensively used, but it is used as either an overlay or an appendix to the official plan. And it's really looking at the longer term future beyond, 20 to 30 years and saying there is potential in these locations. And if we're going to look at them, this is where we are going to look at them. The most recent one is in Niagara region, and they used a similar approach. There's been no applications on those lands that have been identified in the future strategic employment areas in the Niagara Regional Plan because the need hasn't been established. Need is a high bar. And, I recognize that that's planning jargon, but the County of Wellington has done their growth management strategy. They've identified the need within what's called the time frame of the county official plan. And so need has to be established that the township is going to require additional rural employment land beyond what the county has already decided is necessary in the county growth management strategy. So, it's not an easy thing to implement, and it takes, in my experience, an extensive amount of time. And you just don't see applications generally right away. But, the Niagara land market is different than the Puslinch land market.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I think the land right off of Side Road 20, I think there is a great deal of concern just to the speculative activities that have taken place. I'm curious, in terms of the overlays, would it be a criteria, maybe this is more a policy piece of, that the overlay lands, if they are identified, would only be accessible when the prestige lands have been exhausted? Is that a typical process, or are they not tied to each other?
They're not generally tied to each other. What is required in looking at need is looking at the totality of employment land in the township and what's vacant, what's yet to develop. So if you have other vacant employment lands, then, you want to make sure that the vacant employment lands are considered in their totality and not just option D, because there are other employment lands in the township that have yet to develop as well.
And maybe just my last question, is there any, in terms of the overlays, have you experienced any scenario where you would have your primary lands that you've developed through the study, which I think is quite well done, up to date from my opinion, and then a overlay that's deemed, high priority overlay or whatever you want to coin it, and then a lower priority overlay that maybe, not to put words in your mouth, he said like maybe 30 years from now type of thing. And where my head is going is, if there is a desire to put an overlay in, possibly the properties to the east of concession 7 may be deemed like that next tier of properties, and then the lower tier being C and B. Is that even a concept that you typically would approach or even consider approaching?
We don't typically see it, but I wouldn't rule it out. I'd like to some time to think about it. That's why we're hearing the feedback today, so we can digest it and take another look at it and see if that's an opportunity to augment the policy. So we'll certainly take that back and take a look at it. And when we come back in a couple of weeks, we'll have an update for you on that.
That's all the questions. I just personally looking forward to the consultation, hearing more about it. I appreciate the effort you put in to date. It's been a lot, but I think it's quite robust, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. I found it to be actually really quite helpful how you explained it in sort of a simpler term. Because the community has expressed a lot of concern with the future employment area overlay, specifically in land area B and C. And that does carry a significant amount of weight. But I do have a bunch of questions specifically around those, so I hope you can bear with me. Some of them you've already addressed through your presentation.
That's good. I just gotta speak up.
see people.
Yes, I apologize. I don't speak loudly. So I feel as though you already answered this, but I just want to confirm. If it was decided that land option B and C are not included in the employment overlay, does not mean, and I just want to confirm that those lands are off the table for future employment applications to come forward. That's correct.
That is
Correct.
correct. Any landowner can make an application at any time.
So by not having it there, it's not adding any additional protections to it.
No, it's actually a bit of a lower bar because the policy requirements would be from the provincial planning statement, and any local requirements from county or township council would not be included. So things like no employment access to Side Road 20, no driveways to Side Road 20, requiring a transportation plan that directs traffic elsewhere, requiring the concept plan to show how the lands would develop. It would be an uphill battle with any applicant to get all that information. But saying that, the issues around Side Road 20 and not permitting employment access and not allowing driveways out there, that in our view is as important to rural character and protecting farming and protecting those communities as all of the other elements that we've talked about through this process and in these reports.
So my second question was just around comparing how if an application was to come forward for an official plan amendment to develop those lands with the overlay on versus over it. But what I'm hearing from you is that without that overlay, if an applicant came forward with an application based on just provincial policy, the provincial framework, we would not be able to require those protections that you are incorporating into the overlay. So we would not be able to ask the applicant for a separate road, and we would not be able to ask for those no driveway access onto to Side Road 20. Is that correct? Can we still ask for those, but may not be successful? Is that correct?
I think your latter point is the way I see it. You could ask for them, but you may not be successful. What we've done with the specific policies relative to the Side Road 20 area in the overlay is put in specific requirements that will allow county staff and township staff to say to potential applicants, this is the way it is. It's not up for discussion. You have to do a transportation plan. You cannot connect to Side Road 20. You cannot have a driveway to Side Road 20. That's the end of the conversation. Without that, it is going to be somewhat of a negotiation. And I just think that given everything we heard through this process, those are important principles should an application come forward in that area.
Okay. You touched on this as well about in that future employment area, in order for a successful application, there would have to be an establishment of need. And I just would like to get a better understanding of how that need is established. So how would one justify that there may not be existing availability in if we have this huge parcel of land D that will likely take some time to develop all of that. How does the justification of need, and when does the justification of need get established?
So it's done through a forecasting analysis. So I really don't want to confuse anybody, but it is a bit of math. You have, whether it's an applicant or the county revising their growth management strategy or doing an update to it, there is a forecast of population and jobs. And the jobs are determined for the township. And this was done in the county's last growth management strategy. You then apply a number of jobs per hectare if 1,000 jobs are needed and it's 10 jobs per hectare, then it's 100 hectares. You then look at what's called the supply, which is the vacant existing employment land. And if you have 110 hectares of vacant employment land, you don't need any more. If you have 90, you need 10. The work that the county did in their growth management strategy determined the 30 hectares. Typically, these types of updates are done every 5 or 10 years. They require updated census information, so 2021, 2026 census, and there are assumptions around immigration and how population and jobs are going to grow within the province. The provincial planning statement requires that the Ministry of Finance forecasts for population and employment are used, where previously municipalities such as the county did their own forecasting based on other provincial requirements as well. I don't want to overcomplicate it, but it is fundamentally rooted in how much population and jobs are coming to the county and translating that to Puss Lynch. And then do you have enough vacant land to meet what's forecasted?
Similar to what Councillor Hurst had asked, land options G and H were the first two land options to be identified as good candidates for the future employment overlay. And so I was wondering if there has been any consideration or could be any consideration, I think similar to what Councillor Hurst has said, that maybe there's like a phased approach that, I don't know how that gets worded, but maybe G and H come online first and then B and C after. I know you said you have to take that away, just a thought.
Thank you.
Is there anything that could be written into policy that would ensure future employment lands in B and C could only be converted to the prestige rural employment?
We can take a look at that as well.
In preferred land option D, there are, there's overarching design guidelines, but there's also specific design guidelines for the 3 focus areas. One at the gateway, one at the highway frontage, and one in the proximity to the sensitive lands. I'm wondering if similar type focus areas could be proposed for future employment overlay as well.
Leave that one with us. We'll take a look at it and discuss it internally and with our colleagues at the county and the township, and we'll have a response for you on the 23rd.
And then the last question is just not specific to the overlay areas. It's just in regards to the private servicing and the communal systems that were touched on in the report for land option D, which I think makes a lot of sense. But could you just speak to how you would envision that being implemented? Is the design and the construction of the maintenance of that a shared cost? Would that be the responsibility of the township, or how does that get implemented?
It's a good question. So any development application that comes forward would require a servicing study, and that servicing study would establish whether it's going to be communal or private servicing. And if it's communal servicing through either the subdivision agreement or site plan agreement or a separate development agreement, you'd want to make sure that you are protected in terms of the long-term maintenance of it. And if it's something that there is the potential you may need to take over, you're going to want to make sure that you have the financial securities to do so. But it would be through the development process.
Thank you very much.
Great questions. Your recommendation?
I do that corresponds item 10.1 presentation by NPG Planning Solutions regarding Puss Lynch by design phase 5 and 6 be received for information.
And mover, Councillor Riddick, Councillor Hurst. And we have the public information meeting tonight at 7 p.m. at the Social Community Center, right? Okay, any further questions? Very good. All right, thank you, Mary Lou. All in favor?
Thank you very much. We'll see you tonight.
Great day. Great. Here we go. Senior leader. Thank you, everyone. What numbers are 10 something? So what else was this? So almost to Bonnie, Florence down. Maybe invite you down to the important table. Come on down. Have a seat. You didn't know you were being put in the hot seat.
No, I didn't.
Actually, that's why I do that, so that people uncomfortable.
To me.
You're good. Just have a little thing I'm gonna read here, so. Ready. It's council's pleasure to recognize the Township Senior of the Year, Florence. She has been a lifelong member of both Dust Church and Badenoch Community Center, giving countless hours to events and causes that have shaped the township spirit. From organizing the penny table and selling more tickets than anyone for the annual Badenoch Community Barbecue, preparing meals on the lunch team at Dust Church, her dedication is unmatched. She's played a leading role in Badenoch's music night and Christmas craft show, bringing people together with music, fellowship, and good food. Through her actions, Florence has taught others what community service truly means. She has mentored friends and neighbors in everything from leadership to hand quilting. She doesn't just take on a task, she sees it through from beginning to end. Florence, thank you for your decades of service. Congratulations on being named Senior of the Year. Board in the gallery, which is always great to see, and I'll leave it.
Okay.
And you know, you're cut from a cloth that maybe isn't cut as often now. You know, people are busier per se. You know, just raising a family, housing costs, and the volunteerism is down. And people like yourself who continue to do it, you didn't do it for this plaque. You do it because you care, right? This is just our way of recognizing people like yourself that don't do it for the recognition or not for the headlines in the papers because you want to give back. So thank you for doing that down in Badna. I'm old enough to remember playing baseball there. They were quite the powerhouse back in the day, the Badna baseball team. They've been gone for a long time, but they were dominant. And I had the luxury of playing at that diamond, not for a long time, but I was there. So thanks again for everything you do down there and Puslach as a whole. So I'll just give the council an opportunity to say a few words.
Yeah, well, thank you. You know, maybe two comments. I remember playing soccer because I used to coach down at Badenoch, and like the mosquitoes are big enough to carry you. That's the one difference I remember. But yeah, I think to echo Mayor Seeley's comments, people like yourself make this a great community. That's why I choose to live here with my family, type of thing. And I think I'm a different generation, but certainly enjoy all of those community events that go through it. Without people leading up to that, making stuff happen, like you don't get to realize that, right? Like even just this past Canada Day, there was a boatload of people out at the community center. So all those type of things that you choose to spend your time on are fantastic. So just thank you. Yeah, from my perspective. Well done.
That's great.
Yes, thank you so much. I would say, those community events that you spend so much time and dedication on are really, what brings us all together. And I think what keeps us a really close-knit community. So thanks for all the work that you've put in over all of the years to put those together. Councillor
Yes.
Bailey, can I read that?
Absolutely.
Councillor Bailey isn't here today, but she did send something she wanted me to read out. So if that's okay, I'm just gonna read it. This is from Councillor Bailey. It says, congratulations, Florence, on being named Senior Volunteer of the Year in Puslach. I have to say it doesn't come as a surprise. Her dedication to the community has always stood out. From organizing music nights at the Badenoch Community Center to planting and maintaining the gardens there, helping run the craft vendor market, promoting the old schoolhouse at local events, selling tickets and advertising the local barbecue, canvassing for fundraising events, and of course, your leadership as a 4-H leader is just another example of your incredible commitment to your community. Your efforts have touched so many people and areas in Whistler. I've enjoyed working alongside you and learning from you, hearing about past local stories and learning about our neighbors through your volunteerism. Thank you for all that you've done and all you continue to do. This recognition is so well deserved. So, thank you very much.
Well, congratulations. You certainly are a great role model for any individuals who are sort of hesitating whether or not to be volunteers. And another point, you're a great example of great power in the community.
One thing came to mind, as folks here know, that the Wellington County is the owner of the Batna Community Center. And this is actually months ago, I'd forgotten about it, but the CAO of the county, along with senior staff member, had visited the facility. Not for checking up, but it's just their facility, they don't get down here very often, so they decided to stop in. And he called me, and Scott Wilson, you know the name, and he said, that community center was in immaculate condition. And he said he could tell that the people care about that building, and he was very impressed by you folks. So that's just kudos. I maybe should have shared that earlier, but it had slipped my mind. Now that you're here. So a true story. So thank you very much for that. And it's great that you have so much pride in that facility, and it looks amazing. Counties helped do some renovations and upkeep, so good work. We'll have a photo. Girls tell me that I can wear all blue. I disagree, but I take their advice, so. Good night to you. Congratulations, good job. Where should we stand? Where's a good spot? Should we slip outside?
Nice.
Let's slip outside real quick.
Everybody, if you want also be a part of the picture, we can include everybody.
In the picture, you can.
So-
Too much walking.
The council is arranged, that's the design of the